If you go into a bookstore today and buy a book, there's a good chance that this book will be so big that you can comfortably hold it in your hand and read. This is true also of many manuscripts, books that were produced by hand in the past. There are and there were exceptions, of course. In 15th century Egypt, for instance, under the rule of the Mamluk sultans, people produced monumental, big Qur'āns that are so heavy that you actually need a second person to lift them if you want to transport them. But there's also the exact opposite of that. Qur'an manuscripts that are so small that you can hide it in your palm. These miniature Qur'āns are produced in greater numbers approximately from the 14th century onwards. And the most often used book form is that of an octagonal codex. So it's a book you can open, like we know this from the books we use mostly, but it's the shape of an octagonal prism. Because of this shape, the manuscript actually wants to be picked up, it wants to be worn on the body. But of course, you don't do this with direct skin contact, but instead you transport the manuscript in a small pouch or in a metal case. Roughly similar to this one, which I have here. Confusingly, what I hold here is a case for amulets. So you would tuck little pieces of paper in them, which have formulas written on it, Quranic verses and so on. And you carry this on your body, attached to your clothing, as a means of protection against dangers. And we have evidence that miniature Qur'āns were used in a similar way. And probably also to get sort of like a corporal, bodily proximity to the divine. One of the oldest accounts of miniature Qur'āns comes from the scholar Salah ad-Din as-Safadi, who lived in the first half of the 14th century in Damascus and in Cairo. And he writes about a contemporary of his, the master calligrapher Jawad ibn Sulaiman. And he says that Jawad not only wrote a very long Quranic verse on a single grain of rice, but also that he produced a miniature Qur'an. And he says that the paper of this miniature Qur'an weighed 7¼ dirhams and the leather binding 5 dirhams. This is an exceptionally precise but also somewhat exotic piece of data given for a manuscript. And luckily we know how heavy 1 dirham was at the time and in this area. And a dirham is approximately 3 grams. So the entire miniature Qur'an that Jawad wrote was approximately 38–39 grams. Of course, I wanted to know in how far this corresponds to the miniature Qur'āns that have survived until today. But how do I get this information, especially in the times of the COVID-19 pandemic? And I wrote to a colleague who works at the Berlin State Library, Prussian Cultural Heritage, and I said, I got this source from the 14th century with this very precise data on the weight of manuscripts, but I cannot put manuscripts on a scale myself. So would you be able to do that for me? Thankfully, he was able to do so. And surprisingly, 2 of the Berlin State Library miniature Qur'āns weigh exactly as much as the data we have from the 14th century source. There was a 3rd miniature Qur'an which was even lighter at 28 grams. Of course, we don't know what exactly Jawad ibn Sulaiman's Qur'an looked like based on this information, but chances are that it was approximately in the same range with regard to the size and the measurements. As-Safadi says that Jawad ibn Sulaiman read in his miniature Qur'an at night. And why not? If his eyes were good enough that he could pen these tiny characters onto the paper, he was probably also able to read from them. But what makes miniature Qur'an special, in my opinion, is that while they are complete books, and they contain the complete Qur'an, according to what we can say, they're actually not really meant to be read. So they are books that do not really want to be used as books.